Hello, we are live at the Festival of Discovery. My name is Mo and I'm here to do some lovely crafting with you for the next 20 minutes or so on this. Here in Scotland, in Edinburgh, it is a beautiful sunny day, which is really nice. The sun coming in with my windows. So hello and welcome everybody. My name is Mo. I'm really delighted to be back here with the Festival of Discovery. What a jam-packed series. There's been so many things. I've been lucky enough to be here. This is my third session, so I've really enjoyed getting back to doing online sort of sessions and things. So we're imagining a better future together for our planet. And what a great brief as an artist. So I'm an artist. Because for me, it's all about creativity. It's all about making. It's about celebrating our world through beauty and through making positive things and positive changes. So I really enjoy sharing that with other people. So if you want to craft along with me today, fantastic. We are live, so if anything goes wrong, we will endeavour to fix it as fast as possible. Touch wood, nothing has gone wrong so far. And if you have any questions, pop them in the chat and I will get to them, chat in the comments, and I will get to them at the end. If I keep looking at them while I'm talking, I'll get completely confused. So what are we making today? What are we making this afternoon? We are making these hanging sculptures, some ideas for making some beautiful wind catchers, hanging sculptures with found and recycled objects. A big part of my art is giving objects new life, trying to find the treasure amongst other people's trash, and really, you know, supporting our planet in not just throwing things away, but looking at them and thinking, okay, so how could I use that? And really giving like new life to things. So it's all going to be a bit about that. And I think that especially now, if you're thinking about found objects and looking outside, the season of autumn is one of my favorites because there's so much color and natural color to be found. There's so much beauty outside. A little bit of this could be bringing the outside in, and as the nights draw in, having a nice sit down and a nice craft together. So I have my materials laid out and we're just going to go through them. Do craft along with me if you like, or just take this as inspiration to go ahead and craft in the future. So for your wind catcher sculptures, you will need, go with the practical things first, some florists wire, really easily bought. You get gardening wire as well. Basically, you want short lengths of easily malleable wire with your fingers. Florist wire, it's the stuff to get if you can get it. Some glue, just plain old PVA glue, some electrical tape or thicker kind of tape. You'll need some different kinds of yarn. I have some beautiful pink wool and some lovely green wool. Oh, it doesn't look green on my camera, but it is green. I've also got a little bit of ribbon that I saved off of a chocolate box. And I've got some thread as well. So you'll need different kinds of stringy thread things, whatever you have. You'll need a pair of scissors. And what are the other practical things? You'll probably want some recycled bits of cardboard or bits of paper or something like that, some scraps, things that you might not know what to do with, but you have little ends of. Looking for mine, I've been cutting up old things from my recycling, basically clean things from my recycling. And I have some colored pens here as well. In the decoration, in my found gathered objects, I have got some little thin pieces of fabric that I really was thinking, well, what else? What am I going to do with these? So I've got some little bits of fabric. I've got some dried lavender that smells really lovely. And so I have a little weird geranium leaf, which I think also I really like the kind of pattern shape even. I have a couple of old buttons as well. Again, these were things that I found and I thought, well, I've only got one of these. I mean, these are fabulous buttons, but they don't have counterparts. They are just these. So I've got these, set those aside as well. I have an old hair clip that doesn't clip hair anymore. But I really liked it because it's like this really beautiful pattern. It's like a little flower, but it doesn't work as a hair clip. So what else was I going to do with that? So I've got some card set aside, and with the scissors, we're going to cut some things out. And I also have a tiny little polar bear toy that I found in my house. I'm not sure where it came from, but I've got this. So I've kind of set out my materials next to me. I've got to know them a little bit. I've chosen a mixture of things that I've found and things that I've sort of gathered. So the plant leaves are things that I've gone out and found. And I just at this moment want to take just a little pause to talk about safety. So when you're gathering things from the world that's not inside your house, especially if you're looking at the autumnal leaves and beautiful things, it's always lovely to take inspiration and take things from nature, but you need to be careful thinking about where you're finding them. Have lots of people been treading on them? Is it somewhere people walk their dogs? Is it clean? And if you're gathering things, being mindful of where you take them from, washing your hands, making sure you wash them and clean them, maybe preparing your materials before you start to craft with them. Also thinking about the plants themselves. If you're going to pick things, are they a safe plant to take things from? Obviously lavender we know is safe, so that's great. I kept that. Geranium as well, safe for humans, smells great. Being just mindful about things that you take. If you live near a beach like I do, it's really great to pick. Well, this is a bit too big, but I have this lovely stick that's got a really nice pattern on it. But if you're picking things up for a beach, just be mindful. Can you take it from where you are? Should you leave it there? Is it clean? Just keep an eye on those kinds of things. And we'll talk a little bit about the other safety as we craft. You've got to craft safely. So let's get kicking. Let's get started. So we're going to start off making a wire circle. Now I did have a think about other materials that you could use to make the circle. If you are lucky enough to have access to willow, you'll know you can make a circle in a very similar way to the way we're going to make this. No worries. There are other ways. This is just the way that I found that is easiest to share. So you'll take your wire, and this is, we're going to talk about safety again. Even though it's been cut and you can see it's not metal colored, it's green, so it's got a kind of coating on it. The ends are still quite sharp. So whenever you're handling the wire, you want to be mindful, engaged in what you're doing, not distracted listening to the radio, not kind of waving it around. You want to hold it in your hands and look after it. And then you want to bend from the center to the ends. So don't start at the end. I'll do that again. I've got another piece here. So yeah, if you start at the end, you're going to end up not with a circle. Although luckily with wire, you can kind of keep bending and keep bending. The way that I've found that works the best is to start in the middle with your hands like this and bend round. And that gives you, oh, can you see it? Yes, that gives you an approximation of the circle. That's what you want to start off with. You want to start so that, I'll do it here, you can see, so that you can have a little overlap. So I've now got 2 of those, so that's great. And this is where your thicker tape comes in. So I've got some electrical tape. Somehow I always have electrical tape kind of kicking about the house. I'm not sure why, but you might want to use parcel tapes a bit better, something that's got a bit of strength to it. Clear tape is not so great for this. The good thing about electrical tape is it is meant for wire, so it's kind of fit for purpose. It's got a bit of stretch to it. So you take a bit of that, and with the overlap, if you pinch it in one hand, the other hand, starting at the end, hold that there. You want to just make a little tail, and actually at an angle is good. So then you're going to wrap. I will do this again, trying to show without getting my hands in. And with the stretch of the tape, this is really useful. Now, it might take you a couple of times to get this right. And one of my biggest tips for crafting is don't expect to get everything right the first time. It's the process, it's learning, it's the, getting into it and doing it many times. That's the key. So I'm going to do that one more time, because in the end, you'll end up with something like this. And then once your sharp edges are safe behind some tape, you can start sort of holding it in your hands and shaping it into That's a bit more of a circle. So we'll start that again. A nice piece of electrical tape or kind of stronger tape and your circle. And you got to make sure there's probably about 2 or 3 centimeters of overlap. If you don't have enough overlap, when you start to bend it, you'll lose that nice shape. You want to give it enough so it's sort of got a bit of strength to it. So now you can pinch it in one hand, take the tape at an angle with the other. I'm trying to remember where my camera is on my computer. There we go. Little angle and then wrap. And it is quite fiddly. So, you know, if you're a younger person, you're going to want to get your grown-up person to do a bit of the heavy lifting, a bit of the hard work for you. Even if you are a grown-up, you're probably going to want another human there anyway, extra pairs of hands. And it's so lovely to sit and craft together with other people. So don't be afraid to ask for a little bit of help if you need it. So let's see. I have 2, there we go, got some circles there. Now, at this point, you have some decoration options before you even get any further. You could choose to, like, depending on what your wire looks like, I'm quite happy with mine, but you might want to wrap the whole outside with something. You could wrap it with the tape. I mean, electrical tape comes in some funky colors and you could have some nice stripes. Or if you want to go down a more natural route, which I think I do, something like ends of old wool yarn. If you can use willow, then it will look beautiful. But if you want to disguise, you might want to wrap, and that would take quite a long time, but really satisfying to do. And you could cover the whole of your edge. Oh, that's actually quite a nice pattern, even if you didn't do it so tightly. So you've got some options before we get started, but this is the base of what we're going to need. So once you've got that, you want to set that aside and get yourself a length of the string. And we're going to do 2 different patterns. And here I am living out my Blue Peter life, best life. I have some examples I made earlier. We're going to First, we're going to practice, because it can be a little tricky. I'll put it in front of my jumper. We're going to practice with this star shape on our loop. You can see I've hung some things off this one already. And then once we've got used to the knot, we're going to start with a more traditional pattern going round. So what you'll need for that is to get a length of the string that you've chosen. So I'm going to go with a pink because I think you can see it quite easily, and I'm probably going to want to measure it by doing the length of my arm. That's a good length. It's probably enough that you can not get too tangled with it. So take your scissors, and if you're using scissors and you're crafting, you always want to be mindful of where they are, where you've put them down. Don't step on them, don't drop them on people. It's always good to be really clued into what you're doing. Okay, so you got your hoop, you got your thread, and you just want to tie it to the top, or in this case, I'm tying it to where the tape is, and just do a double knot. Again, I'm probably going to whiz through this because I don't have a huge amount of time with you guys, but I would really recommend taking your time, because the longer you take, the neater things are, and the more chilled the whole experience is. All right, so I've tied it to the top. What I'm just going to ignore this little tail. We'll snip it off later. I'm going to choose a point on my hoop here. I'm going to stretch so that there's a bit of bounce. And then I'm going to not just pull it round and move on, because then it will slip. And in the end, it'll come off. We want to give it a little anchor point, a little knot. So you just turn over and then give it a little half hitch, I think it's called, or just a little knot. In fact, at this stage, you can really see what works for your fingers. I think this will be a little hard to explain, but we'll do that many times. And what this does is I can now put this down, go and have a cup of tea, go and see my friends, do things, and come back to it, and it will be in the same place. If I had just hooked it round, oh my goodness, thread everywhere. So let's do that again. So we've got there, so I'm going to go over here now. And the great thing about this kind of star pattern is that you can you can kind of go see as you go. So you're going to start so that there's a bit of tension, go over, pull it toward you, and then pull the tail through. It took me a few tries to get this right every time, and also to get it to pull it tight. So I think practice makes perfect, but I'm going to keep doing that again. So a little bit of tension, pinched with one hand. If you have another human there, makes it so much easier. Pop that through. And if you get it wrong, just untie. And if you pull and keep sort of keeping it as tight as possible, you can see that's starting to go. And they will still shift a little bit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a couple more, and then I'm going to put a little dot of glue on the edges. So if you've wrapped your wire circle, this will be a lot easier because it won't slip. It's the slippiness of the wire that's really, yeah, it's kind of, you see that shifted there, but I can just shift that back. Oh, it's happened again. So yeah, you might want to add a little dot of glue in there. There we go. And then back to the beginning. And then we've got a lovely star. I think that's really quite nice. And tie a little knot. So I have just plain PVA glue, and it has a little nozzle, very handy. And I'm just going to put a little dot on each corner. And then I would probably leave that to dry, but to be honest, PVA glue dries really quickly. So there we go. And once you've done a few of these, and you've kind of got that knot technique down, you can start to do more complicated things. You might do another color and do another triangle over the top to give you a lovely web. But this is kind of the base. So once you have this, and you've got a few of these, you want to look at the decoration. What are you going to hang from your sculpture? How is it going to hang up? And I'm going to show you some of the things, that I like to make for things like this. So if you've got any fabric scraps around, what would you do with something like this? I don't know. Like, it's so small, it's not really good to be used for anything, but I really do like the color and the pattern on it. So if you've got a rectangle like this, you can take a pair of scissors and carefully slice, cut carefully. We'll get an adult to cut for you so that you've got a little tail, and then do it on the same, but on the other side, but don't cut all the way to the middle. And then fold over and pinch, and you have a lovely little tassel. So here's one I made earlier. Really nice to be able to use. In fact, they would make quite nice earrings, but it's really nice to use the rest of your like little scraps of fabric that you might have, or an old shirt that you really love but you want to keep it, you don't want to you can't wear it anymore, it's got holes in it, something like that. Also, if you have thin thread, something like this, especially if it's dark or very light thread, you can create invisible hangings. So here I just drew a little squiggle and then I cut it out and then I hung it up. So I'll add that one. Wow, we've got one, I've got a little, and that's where paint pens and colouring in really comes into its own. You can sort of add some zigzags to your decoration doesn't have to be zigzags. I'm adding zigzags, that's why I said zigzags. So once you have all of these different things, when you have something like this now, you can start attaching your items to it. So I think I'll start with this hair clip that doesn't attach anymore. I want to add this to here. If your object handily already has a clip built into it, great. It will kind of clip itself. Buttons as well, very useful for things like that. So what I've done with this button is I've already pre-attached a piece of yarn to it. Very helpful. I'll just neatly snip that bit off. So if you're going to hang these outside, be mindful of how much plastic you use. It's really great to reuse plastic rather than send it to the recycling. But if it blows away into the environment, it just becomes more rubbish, which is not what we're after. So if you're keeping it within your garden, then you can always keep an eye on it, no worries. But there's always something really nice about this, to use woolen yarn, take things from nature, make it so that it is as biodegradable as possible, and just being quite mindful about where you put these things, especially if you were to maybe put them out to decorate somewhere where you're not going to come back to as often. Okay, I'm going to hang this here. And this is really very buildable. So you start to add little bits and pieces. You start to look at materials in a nice new way. These are really nice, especially toward Christmas time. You could add in things like cloves and star anise. I just love the smell of lavender. So I think it would go very nicely with the pink yarn that I've got. So you can keep kind of adding things in. And the more time you spend, the more beautiful things tend to be, and the more that you have something that you would enjoy having hung up in your bedroom or in your kitchen or just outside your window. And you can start looking at different properties of the materials that you're finding. Do they rustle really nicely? Do they clink together really well? Shells make a really beautiful noise when they kind of clink together on top of one another. So what else do I have with me? So yeah, I think cutting up pieces of card. I just made a little heart here to hang on, and attaching things as you go. So in the end, you end up with a kind of, well, assemblage is the word, an assembled object full of lots of different bits and pieces. And I really want to encourage you to see materials differently. And this goes to show that I've had a rummage through my house. I went to the beach and had a look. You don't need to go to be creative, to make beautiful things, to make beautiful art. You don't need to go to shops to buy new things. You can head to secondhand stores, always have craft materials. I find paper, pencils, that kind of thing. But have a look in your recycling bin. Instead of sending things to the recycling, and if you get some packaging that you really like this chocolate box ribbon, keep it, use it. Have it, give yourself a treat, set yourself out a day of crafting or an afternoon of crafting. Make something beautiful for a friend. I love making things, and I always want to share with people that doesn't need to be very difficult. It doesn't need to be very complicated. It can just be really fun. And this is hopefully a technique that everybody can do. So I'll just show you where I've kind of got to. Obviously you can't see my hands, but I think I would attach this with this nice ribbon. I like to have a different kind of color ribbon to hang it up than I've had to kind of weave the things together. I'm just gonna approximate that. There we go so far. And you could end up making a few of these. You could make a really, really big one. You could make smaller ones. It's all about that knot. So I'm going to do that one more time, because it is I think the trickiest part of this, to be honest. And I think it's the bit that I have the hardest time showing everybody. But yeah. So let's see. It's a nice bit of tension, and then pinch with your fingers. You get a longer bit. And then if you pull the longer bit towards you and tie it around the bit with tension. This is where if you have a really long bit of thread, it can get really tangled. So always, try and just think about your body length. It's always good to measure from here to the end of your arm is a good length of string to work with. Yeah, and then you tighten it up. And once you get really good at this, you can start what I've done here and I've got two, and I've started quite shallowly to make it much more around the outside than straight through the middle. And that's after I'd practiced for quite a bit. And then you can start to tie knots instead of to the wire. You can start to pull your thread around. Oh, I have this one's already attached. And use the inner part of the thread or the yarn as your outside. And that's how, so this idea is very much based upon the native peoples of America's dream catchers, but that has such a religious significance. I'd really encourage anybody who is interested in this kind of sculpture to go and read and see the amazing craftspeople who are making these kinds of things that have much more of a significance to their spirituality and places. I mean, you can buy them and they're beautiful, beautiful things, but you can also enjoy making them yourself, and you can start and move inward. So I think that's us at time, or I've run over a little bit of time. I think I'd just like to leave you with that sentiment that there's beauty everywhere. It's autumn, the colors are changing, everything's gorgeous. You don't need to go out and buy new things. You can make gorgeous, lovely, recycled things, and just, you know, don't throw away your old buttons. This is my plea for you. You've got one old button, use it, think of it, especially if you have an old jumper you want to enjoy for longer than it will last. Keep a button from it and you keep those memories. So it's been an absolute joy being back, part of the Festival of Discovery, and seeing all the things that are happening. This afternoon, there are 2 really great literacy book things that are happening with a couple of folks off the telly I saw. What a cool thing for me to be on the bill of such an amazing group of people. At 12:15, books are being recommended by Ben Miller off the telly. And then again at 1:30, it's Stephen Mangan and his sister. They've written a book, Escape the Rooms. It sounds like exactly the sort of book that I would have loved to read and will probably enjoy reading again. So check that out. If you go to the Festival of Discovery website, you can see all the different things that are happening. It's really an incredible spread of things. And yeah, enjoy crafting, enjoy your day, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.